After quite literally ages of going without any sort of story progression for Overwatch, at long last we've gotten a brand new bit of story, this time in the form of a short story as opposed to an animated short or a comic, that actually advances the Overwatch plotline. And today, I'm going to run through all the interesting and possibly foreshadowing bits of information that are revealed in this short story. This is Master Ian Gamer, and let's get into it. Now, the short story itself is called BASTET and takes place in Cairo, mainly following Ana and Soldier 76 after the events of the Old Soldiers comic. I do recommend you read this short story for yourself if you're interested. It's not the most interesting story overall, but it does reveal quite a bit about Ana and Soldier 76 as characters, and for that sake, I think it is worth checking out. It's a pretty quick read, and I'll have a link to it down in the description. But anyways, in this video, I want to run through some of the interesting details we pick up on in this comic that either weren't clear beforehand or were completely unheard of. I will be running through these chronologically as they appear in the short story. So first up, Soldier 76 has the same regenerative abilities as Reaper. Now, this is something that could have been speculated about beforehand, given that they both went through the same soldier enhancement program. However, this is the only time we've had it specifically laid out for us that, yes, Soldier 76 can regenerate his body in the same way as Reaper. Now, as another bit of trivia, which I see a lot of people sort of confused about, is the fact that Reyes didn't actually get his regenerative abilities from Moira. Due to various tidbits of information, there's evidence to suggest that he's had those capabilities since long before Moira was ever even in the picture, and it seems like Moira's influence has only sort of refined and extended the capabilities of Reyes' unique condition, as opposed to being the original source of it. Starting in Blackwatch and moving on into Talon, it seems like she's sort of been goading on his strange abilities in an effort to make him more powerful, but at the same time probably making him suffer quite a bit in the process. Anyways, this tidbit we do learn in the BASTET short story does point out that Soldier 76 is regenerative as well, despite the fact that he doesn't have that ability in-game. It overall just gives us a bit more detail and information regarding the Soldier Enhancement Program, which otherwise we really don't know a whole lot about. That's one of the things I'd be very interested in hearing more information about in future comics or other bits of story. Anyways, moving on to our next point, the archaeologist Faisal, who is seen on the Petra map, is apparently known by the members of Overwatch. In the short story, Ana refers to Dr. Faisal by name and apparently has quite a bit of trust in them as she's planning to give them the artifacts she's found in the necropolis. The reason this stood out to me so much is the archaeologists on Petra always have seemed kind of intriguing. They're characters that we didn't really know who they were associated with. Their tent has an icon which seems to signify that they have their own sort of faction, but now we know that Overwatch themselves possibly had some kind of relation with the archaeologists. Perhaps the archaeologists were actually linked to the organization, or maybe they were just sort of like partners in the efforts they were doing. Again, we don't really learn too much more about the archaeologists themselves or Dr. Faisal, but I will say the idea of an archaeologist hero is one that I could definitely get on board with. Just something to consider as we move forward. The next interesting thing from this short story is the mention of the Anubis Project, which apparently took place in Cairo and was shut down by Overwatch. Now, this almost certainly is linked to the Anubis AI, which we see Pharah and the other Helix security members try to take down in Pharah's comic. How exactly Overwatch was involved with this project, or what the Anubis Project itself even really is still, well, really unknown. But we do know that Overwatch themselves had some kind of interaction or influence with the project and ultimately resulted in it being shut down, and by being shut down, it's somehow devastated Cairo and Egypt as a whole. Now, this is interesting because it makes Anubis sound like a much bigger deal than a lot of people had initially thought. I mean, I think Anubis was already a big deal. It was a super powerful AI which could theoretically take over the world, but it must have had some practical purpose that Egypt was trying to utilize, such that when it was deactivated or shut down initially, that caused some sort of economic or political collapse collapse, which kinda devastated the country. Maybe I'm reading a bit too far into this one, although it did stand out as a rather interesting thing for them to bring up, and maybe there's quite a bit more to Anubis and the Anubis Project than we initially thought. It has been confirmed that God Program is just a colloquial term and thus doesn't really stand for any kind of AI classification, but it does still seem like there's quite a bit going on, and I'm very interested to see if this gets further developed later down the line. The next interesting tidbit from the story is that Sombra is possibly supplying Morrison with information on Reaper. Now, this is a very, very subtle indicator that's going on here. It basically stems from this scene where Ana is checking a computer that Jack was using to look up information on Reaper, and she seems put off by the information that Morrison has, and seems to inquire where he's getting this information. Now, whenever it comes to mysterious information being shared, Sombra is naturally the first character who comes to mind. And given that we know Sombra has been tracking Overwatch agents and even gets some relevant clues on the Castillo map, it seems quite likely that Sombra is the one providing Morrison with this information. Again, this plays towards the idea of what Sombra's overall goal really is, if she's playing both sides of Talon and old Overwatch agents. What's her ultimate goal? That's an interesting question, and of course there are plenty of fan theories about what's going on, which I won't be delving into here because that's incredibly complicated, but it is an interesting thing to point out that Ana is suspicious of Morrison's sources, and it seems like Sombra is likely one of them. Moving on now to a real kicker of a trivia bit that I'm sure a lot of people are going to get rather excited about, is the fact that it's strongly hinted that Soldier 76 had a relationship with a dude named Vincent. That's right, it seems like Soldier 76 is gay, or bisexual possibly. It's not flat out stated, but it is heavily implied, and that is an interesting direction for them to take Soldier 76's character. I've seen plenty of fan theories about how Reyes and Morrison may have been in a relationship with each other, which is actually kind of debunked in this short story because it points out the fact that Reyes was Morrison's best friend, at least according to Ana, and given how close all three of them are, I think if Reyes and Morrison were in a relationship, Ana would have known for sure. So I do think this kind of sinks the Reyes-Morrison ship that a lot of people were a fan of, but Jack himself does seem to be batting for the other team. We don't know much about this Vincent character, however, we did see him originally in the Reflections comic all the way back in 2016 in this small photograph, which we now get a close-up image of in this short story. In the story, Morrison laments about how Vincent went on to have his own family, thus somewhat leaving Morrison in the dust, but it does seem like Jack still has feelings for him, and it's a bit of an influence on his character, especially during his time in Overwatch. Overall, this is a rather interesting bit of trivia, and I'm really eager to see how people react to it overall. Personally, I'm just happy we're getting more information about all these heroes, and thank God the story is actually moving forward. Now, one last bit of information, which we kind of were already able to speculate about, but has now been clarified in this short story, is the fact that Gabriel Reyes had a family before the fall of Overwatch and his transition into becoming the Reaper. Following Morrison's lament about Vincent, he comments on the fact that both Ana and Gabriel had families during their time in Overwatch. Now, jumping back to the Reflections comic once again from 2016, it seems incredibly likely that this family we see here is in fact Reyes' family. Now, it's a bit hard to tell who exactly is who. My guess about who exactly these people are, just based on their appearance and the fact that Reyes is now in his late 50s, I think the man we see here with the baseball cap is Reyes' son, with his own wife and own child. Although I suppose you could possibly interpret it in a few other different ways. This obviously adds a ton more complexity to Reaper's character now that we know for sure he had a family, and it'll be really interesting to see how that comes up again as the story hopefully continues to progress later down the line. What exactly was his reasons for turning evil and joining Talon? How much does his family know about his current situation and what happened with him in Overwatch? To be honest, I think this short story overall might actually bring up more questions than it actually answers, but nonetheless, I am so glad glad that we've finally gotten some more story progression. I think one of the greatest things about having a short story like this versus a comic or certainly an animated short is that short stories are much cheaper and easier to produce. They don't require nearly as much artwork, and essentially they just need a good writer. I would not mind if we start seeing more of these short stories, as it is a great effective way to further the ongoing Overwatch narrative without having to spend a whole bunch of time and effort on all the visuals of a comic, and of course animated shorts are super expensive, despite how cool they are. So yeah, fingers crossed that we get more of these in the near future. One final thing to note real quick is the fact that we do appear to get a look at a brand new Ana epic skin, which is Bastet, also being the name of the short story. Currently, this skin does not appear to be either in-game or on the PTR, which makes me wonder about how and when this might finally be introduced. It's possible we could be getting a brand new dump of base loot pool items, much like the Blizzard World skins we got last year, or perhaps we're going to see yet another mini event like the Diva Nanocola Challenge, where you do a number of little tasks and the end reward will be this new Ana skin. Details about this have yet to be revealed, but I will definitely be keeping you guys up to date as we learn more. And with that, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below about the Bastet short story and the little tidbits of information it reveals about the characters and world. Do you like having these short stories as a way to introduce more Overwatch lore, or would you rather they try to stick with comics? Either way, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video and share it with a friend if you really liked it. Subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and hit up the bell to never miss any of my future Overwatch content. This is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.